Thank you, Alan. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you again. For me, it's, I think, the fourth year in a row attending the TAT Summit. Of course, the first two times were online, but starting last year, again, showing in person to this nice event. Thank you, Alan, for putting everything together. In terms of the topic I will be covering today, I will continue a bit the idea started by Dave, so thank you, Dave, for warming up the audience when it comes to how open source is actually, let's say, serving the real needs of the industry and how these two things work together. Because for some people, there is a bit of a difficulty, let's say, to understand, okay, how you can make use and how you can adapt open source and, industry. So I will be talking about that, especially from the perspective of our project, of the OpenSIPS project. And because, yes, as I said, we want to understand more or less how an open source project may deliver to the industry, may survive in terms of resources and so on. Let me first start with a quick overview on some concepts about open source. It's just to build a case, not necessarily because it's like some fresh news. First, there is a in many cases, some people call it open source or open software. Other people are calling it free software. So trying to put some ideas behind this. Okay, what it is? It's free or open? What's the truth? And actually, it sounds a bit strange. Depends on the size of the project, of course. Let's see, traditionally, historically actually, most of the open source projects started like small endeavors like, back garage or dark corner basement projects, where you had one guy doing more or less like a hobby when it comes to, to what they do. They simply want to have other people using what they created. So it's more like a free source because I built something and I let other people to use it. That's it. So more or less that's the very beginning when it comes to the open source. So it's a one-way relation between the creator of the project and the people using. You just give for free something and that's it. And of course it's they're like small things. Or I'm not saying not valuable, but not reliable, mainly because, okay, it was like more a hobby. You never know when it stops. And also you don't know exactly if that guy is maybe willing to, let's say, get opinions from outside. It's his hobby and that's it. Such projects are more like, again, started from the desire of people to just share what they did and have other people using that. So from their perspective, it's not more like they don't have any kind of resources involved in that. They already did the work, just have other people using for free. So let's see. In the past maybe 20 plus years, somehow the trend changed. And we have what we call the large open source project, and there are a bunch of them. And what's the difference here? Well, in such projects, people are like full-time involved. For them, it's a full job style. It's not a hobby that you do. It's your day-by-day activity. The approach changes. It's not like just take it for free. It's open. Open meaning, okay, it's shared. So share means you have a two-way communication. So it's not only you give the code for free for other people, but also you expect and you get a lot of contributions. So that's why it's open. You have a community that actually works together over the project. And such projects, they do start consuming resources. Because, okay, you have to invest a lot of manpowers in running such projects. You have people writing code. You have to provide community support, which takes a lot of time. You have a bug tracker, which again, for the community, which again requires a lot of time. You need to invest in testing. Of course, we are now talking about community level testing, but overall, it takes a lot of manpower, not to mention that, okay, you have also some infrastructure cost. You need to host things. You are using third-party services attached to the project, like, for example, we are using a lot Slack channels, we host blogs, and so on and so on. So, you know, at the first day, sounds like a bit of, grains of sand, but at the end, you know, you feel in the whole beach with that. So, you know, costs are simply piling up. So, trying to summarize over here, when you are running a large project, everything spins around the concept of sharing with the community. So it's not one or two persons just providing free code. You have a bunch of people working together and benefiting from the end results. But in the same time, you need to have the idea of also sharing the costs and the resources. So there is sharing between, okay, we share the deliverable, but also we need the support from community in order for the project to function. So that's, how to say, that's the first idea to remember. Moving on, okay, we have the open source, and then how the open source and industry embracing actually worked. Because this was like from the very beginning kind of a, you know, love and hate relation between for the industry trying to adopt in terms of using open source. And we have some love factors over here. First of all, yeah, okay, code it's for free, so that's a very strong argument in here. Companies taking into consideration the usage of open source, so they have the possibility to get involved. So that's a big plus. Getting rid of the vendor trap. That's also something interesting, because you know you are using a project. Maybe I'm working with some project with some persons in order to get support help for the development for that project. Okay, that person goes away, whatever. Okay, I have alternatives. I can get in the same project to other people in the community in order more or less to get ideally the same. And the idea that, okay, battery died. Okay, we'll just use the loud voice. That's a better microphone. Yeah. And we also have the idea of keeping the ball rolling, the fact that the company gets involved, or let's say generic user gets involved, they did some small customization on the source, they come up with small ideas back to them, they contribute back. And if everybody does the same, you know, they pile up a lot of contributions back, that helps a lot on the project, because step by step it becomes more and more attractive for the next people using it. And also they've mentioned the fast developing cycle when it comes to the open source projects. Usually if you go to like to a vendor and say, hey, I need some changes, they say, oh, okay, well, hold on and wait maybe at least 6 months plus for that. In open source, that may be available in a matter of days or weeks, depending on, let's say, how big the need is. Probably you'll find somebody to do it for you and get it done pretty fast. So yeah, that was the love factors, but we have also some hate factors. Why there was a bit of a reluctance in terms of adopting open source in the industry. Well, you know, when you start operating things and run businesses and services and so on software, you expect to have some solid grounds, to have something reliable, somebody to keep, to let's say, have your back when something goes wrong. If you discover a bug or something, you need to have some guarantees that will be someone ready to fix it, and also to have some, let's say, to have some predictability when it comes to that software, because businesses, they tend to make plans about it. It's not like, okay, only for the next month or two. You need to understand, okay, maybe when the next release will be available and so on. So a lot of things that, from this perspective, that, let's say, in the very beginning, they were not so appealing when it comes to the open source. Next, when it comes to the so-called hate factor. That was not part of the plan. No. Yeah. Having a free code is great, but in order to use it, companies do expect, okay, how do I get training about it? How can I get a consultancy? I mean, just having the software itself, it's not sufficient if you want to build things on top of it, or if you start operating. You expect to get a lot of additional services to be available. So it's not only about the code. And there was, again, a reluctance about adopting the open source code, because it doesn't give you any kind of advantage over the competition. Because, okay, if the competition uses the same, okay, what's my advantage? We are using the same base code. But the idea here, it's not the code when you get the advantage. It's how to use it and what you build on top. We're going to see later. So again, trying to draw some conclusions here. Second point, well, we call it the naked open source. It's not necessarily so appealing to the industry, because basically, in order to address what the industry needs, in order to operate, businesses on top, you need to come up with a lot of, let's say, wrapping on top of open source, to build up, maybe integrate it with other softwares, maybe to build, let's say, APIs to add high availability systems. Yeah, and so on, in order to fit to what the industry expects from a software. And at the end of the day, looking from all these perspectives, large open source projects, more or less, it's like a small company. You have the cost and you have deliverables. So you need to take care of these. So let's look at now in actually what is the topic of the presentation, about how we do address all this in the OpenSIPS project. First, about the project. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with what OpenSIPS is. Well, definitely yes. It's a large open source under. Okay. Okay, thanks. So, what OpenSIPS project is? Well, it's a large open source under GPL's license project. And it's a generic SIP server. So basically, whatever comes to SIP, you can use OpenSIPS to have it as a register, to have it as a proxy, a back-to-back user agent, and so on and so on. So again, whatever are your needs when it comes to SIP, okay, you can resolve with OpenSIPS. Some of the important aspects of the project, it's a SIP proxy, it's a highly scalable one, so we are talking about a single instance being able to do like maybe 20, 30,000 calls per second, being able to handle several hundreds of thousands of simultaneous calls, and so on. It's a very flexible and at the same time configurable. Flexible, we have like more than 150 modules bringing different kind of features that can be used inside what we call a configuration script. So basically you describe into kind of a shell scripting how OpenSIPS will behave in terms of handling the SIP traffic. So it's highly configurable. Basically, you can do whatever kind of a logic you need inside the project. We have a lot of history behind with the project, probably more than almost, let's say, 15 years. We have a high ratio of being adopted and used in the telecom industry. So all the time we have surprises coming from different kind of companies saying, hey, you know, we are using. They are a bit shy in admitting sometimes, but you know, the truth is coming out step by step. And part of this success about being adopted by the telecom industry, it's the fact that we, as a project, we consider that, you know, one of the most important ideas in the project is to identify and address the industry needs. Basically, we are building a project that solves some problems. It's not like a hobby and just making a project for the sake of, yes, we have an open source project, blah. No, we are trying to solve some existing, let's say, needs when it comes to the telecom industry. So let's see what we do as a project when it comes to the so-called industry adoption. And stage 1, we call it, it's trying to be more than a naked software, so just a piece of software. And for that, next to OpenSIPS as software itself, we have a quite complex ecosystem of other softwares that may be used together, like command line interfaces, web interfaces, APIs to be used together with OpenSIPS, and lately also a testing framework for our project. So I'll just quickly go through this. You can again have all these applications together with a project, again to allow you to build more complex and closer to a complete solution when it comes to you know, building products. So at the end, what we try to achieve is to have something more than code only. We demonstrated actually in the last years that okay, it's a reliable project that you can base on when it comes to using. It is predictable. We already have a quite you know, well-defined release plan once per year. We have minor releases, so all the time you know exactly what's next, so you can do the planning. We have a good community support with trackers, mailing lists, so we encourage people to work with us, open to ideas and contributions. 2 years ago we had a security audit. Everybody's interested in security, so we had a professional security audit thanks to Enable Security. They went through, so that was actually a community effort in terms of covering the costs for that, because definitely such a audit costs. We have each year we have a OpenSIPS Summit conference in order to discuss about what was done, what needs to be done further, exchange ideas and so on. And yeah, that's actually part of our motto of being driven by the industry's needs. Next, stage 2. So first, okay, we try to build a lot of context around the project to be more appealing. But in terms of supporting the project, stage 2 is what we call the duality of the project. Basically, you know, in most of the cases, we need, you know, running the project requires a lot of resources to be involved. So basically, we have what we call the industry phase. So the same together with the project, we have the company next to it trying to address the resources for the project. In this case, we have the SIPhub, which is providing most of the cost for running the project in terms of manpower, in terms of infrastructure, and so on. And it's a bidirectional relations. It's kind of a symbiosis between the two. While the company is supporting the project, we are also taking advantage of a lot of knowledge produced by the project in order to, build some great solutions. So they work hand in hand, supporting one each other, and you will see probably this model in many cases when it comes to the projects. Because again, an open source project, it's like a small business. It has to get some income from somewhere in order to be able to produce. So in our case, the SIPhub is the one providing the incoming or covering the cost for the projects, so that we keep up the pace with the development. In both sides, in the OpenSIPS side, so the open source, and in the SIPhub, in the business side, basically we have the same people involved. So it's the same team, but with two roles playing along both in the open source and in the business side. So basically what we do here with the projects, we are taking OpenSIPs and we are wrapping into different kind of products in order to fit, to make it ready for industry. So basically products or solutions that you can take and operate into businesses. And by doing that, we get in touch with what is new in the industry, what is needed in the industry. So that brings a lot of ideas, of course, because when we are trying to implement, let's say, a new kind of product, we need also to do some new coding eventually. And this coding is going back into the project. So there is a lot of, again, ideas, code or traction, like sometimes we start discussion about, like we did lately about different things about IMS, about RCS and stuff like that. And there was a lot of traction and then a lot of code into that going back into the project. So the idea that we explore different things into the industry side has a quite good impact back into the project. And okay, the SIPhub is the one trying to address also a lot of the OpenSIPS project resources, more or less putting the bread on the table for the developers. So, well, the typical question is, okay, if it's open source, okay, what do you have to sell about it? And you can achieve this in different ways. Well, at the end of the day, the code it's free. You can take it and use it. But the idea is you also may need a lot of knowledge in terms of how to use the code, especially in our case, OpenSIPS is quite complex. And the learning curve is quite steep, so probably you will need maybe, let's say, 6 months at least to get used to how to use it in order to start building something. So you have to invest in people to get trained or to take knowledge. So basically what we are doing, we are selling the knowledge, which is a quite valuable merchandise when it comes to the projects. And this knowledge may be delivered either as services, support, consultancy, training, and so on, or in our cases through the SIPhub, we embed this knowledge into products. So we take OpenSIPS and we configured, for example, to act as a session border controller, or to act as a soft switch, or as a trunking system, and so on. So you need a lot of knowledge in terms of how to do it, not only on the OpenSIPS side, but also to put together, to integrate the solution with databases, APIs, and so on and so on. So a lot of things that you need to put together with the OpenSIPS itself. in order to build a working complete solution. Why do we call them engines? As an analogy, it's like in a car. You have an engine, but that's not sufficient. You need to put together the rest of the car, just to have the driver in it and to make it work. But still, the engine is the most valuable part of the car. And in analogy, the OpenSIPs is, or what we do with OpenSIPs, it's the actual engine, but we stop at the API levels, letting whoever it's using, to build on top, in terms of building on top of the APIs, to build, interfaces, whatever they want, user interfaces, provisioning interfaces, and so on, because basically that's the thing that personalizes the companies, and it's impossible to address this, case by case. So in that case, we just provide the APIs like a building block, and then on top you can build your own interfaces. And we did a lot of such building blocks, such engines. Again, trying to cover more or less the most what we think to be the most interesting services when it comes to SIP, like trunking, soft switches, SBCs, and so on. And how we actually do this? Again, taking the OpenSIPs, putting together with a lot of provisioning, managing, because at the end of the day, you want to have some kind of a product that it's ready to be operated. So you troubleshoot, it gives you reports, you are able to provision things into, you have high availability address, you can do scalability and so on. So you need to bundle all these together. It's not only the OpenSIP, so basically that's what we are doing. And because it's open source, of course the cost with the license of the software is low. Then we can invest a lot of attention and of course cost into other areas. For example, getting a high level of customization, because when you go and buy let's say a product which involves a lot of licenses, probably 80% of the cost goes into the license, and that's it. And you'll get from the vendor, okay, if you need something else, it cannot be changed, take it or leave it. So it's a kind of a deal that it's not really flexible. When you use like open source, you have more or less like zero cost to the, when it comes to the licenses, so you can divert eventual part of the cost into customization. So you can get exactly, the customer can get 100% exactly what he needs from you. It's not like a 70-80%. Thanks to the API, it's very easy to integrate. We have a lot of programmability, a lot of flows in there that you can play with in the products. And all these engines are ideal for building and powering all these service kind of, as a service kind of services you have right now. And of course you can run it in different kind of environments. We take advantage of the project itself because the OpenSIPs brings a lot of throughput, already mentioned. We have a lot of features ready in there. And we are trying, sometimes it's very hard for us, even if it's the same team, to push all the features that are popping up into the project, to have them reflected into the products. Like we are still pending in trying to add all the MSRP and RCS chat part into the products, because okay, things are usually moving because of the testing a bit slower on the product side rather than the actual open source project. So yeah, the OpenSIPs it's a very good project in order to build around. Just as an idea, we have a lot of what defines us as an engine, the fact that everything is driven through APIs and events. So basically, it's a kind of a from your perspective, you know, if you try to use it's a black box. You don't need actually to understand or to be aware of what is beneath. You have the APIs, everything it's driven through that part. You get events in order to understand what's going on, and that's it, you are ready to go. In terms of high availability and scalability, we went with, again, thanks to the project, with a lot of clustering concept. So we do the geo-redundancy and also geo-scalability in the same time. So from this perspective, again, thanks to the project. And just to conclude, all these are contributing back to the project, because whatever happens, let's say on the industry side, on the commercial side, it's automatically reflecting back into the project. So whenever we have ideas, whenever we have some code done, or a challenge, all these are pushed back into the project and automatically available for the community. So that's like a huge repository of knowledge and code that other people may use too. And the project is also covered in terms of resources, and we are keeping we are using actually the project as a boiling point, a coagulation point for different kind of discussions about new, not necessarily new, but hot topics, that are interested for, you know, different people. So, you know, we are keeping the piece up in order to see exactly what is needed on the industry side. So basically the two ways, meaning, okay, going open source project and the companion, some kind of a commercial companion is sometimes a good combination, because you get a lot of tractions coming from two directions. They help one each other, so it's definitely better than just, you know, having one side of this. So I don't want to keep you more, because, you know, lunch is here, I guess. No, okay, so I can keep you more.
But yes, no, this was excellent, Bogdan. Thank you so much. The lunch is not here yet. I pinged Patrice to ask, but please, Q&A.
Okay.
I had a question, in fact, for you and for Dave too. My question was, how do you manage the product backlog? I mean, you've got plenty of ideas that comes from your experience when you interact with clients, and also you've got the community that can have some needs to improvement of your solution. And so that's a simple question: is how you organize that, how you do the prioritization of that stack of features. Does that only rely on your final hand, or do you also, I don't know, arbitrate? How do you animate that process? Maybe Dave also would have an answer.
Well, at least from our side, from the OpenSIPS project, things are quite straightforwardly refined during the years. Before each release, so basically when we are looking for, okay, what should be the next steps, we have public polls in terms of, okay, what are the interesting topics and what are the voting. So yeah, we try to get some feeling about what are the topics and what is the importance of different topics for the community. And of course then we put everything in a box together with what we would like to get. We are mixing well and trying to find some synergies between the two, like some overlapping between, okay, what we do and so on. But it's also what Dave said about the P1 and the P2, so about the value of each topic, like what kind of a value may bring overall, let's say, to the project, or okay, we consider ourselves also part of the project, like another users of the project. So we are not trying to see us necessarily like special when it comes to, okay, what needs to be done. So we're trying to put on the same level with the rest of our community members. Okay, do you?
Yeah, Yeah, in my case, our project is fairly small, and it's fairly informal. So we don't have a formal governance model, which I could see us moving to. So a lot of things do really come down to my decision, based on what I think will be most valuable for the project. A lot of times there's back and forth. If someone will request something and I won't understand it, I'll say, well, what's the use case here, describe it, and then I'll say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, factored into that, if a customer's on a support contract, part of that is we are going to prioritize his feature requests. So it's likely, if you're on a support contract and you ask for something, we're going to do it. Because we need a certain percentage of the community putting fuel in this thing to move it forward.
The value.
Yeah. So today it's kind of informal, and which I think befits the stage of the project. In the future, I could see more of a formal governance model and something like that.
As far as I understand, I think there is also an issue, or not an issue, but a stake, is to keep the product homogeneous. I don't know, it means something. I mean, you need to have a product vision, and also not building a pile of functions that some way are interacting together. You need to build something that is that makes sense and consistent. Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe sometimes when you are too open to suggestions and you take those suggestions and try to make something from bottom up, in the end you've got something that is very diversified, and sometimes maybe you need more leadership into what needs to be built so that the product looks like something.
Yeah, if I could just, definitely, like a lot of times someone will ask for something in a certain way, and I will not want to do it that way because it'll make the code. I just don't want it to go in the architecture that way, so I will often say, well, no, but can we meet the same, here's how I would do it. I would do it this way, so I'll change that. Another thing that I'd be interested in, it's about, and that's when people come and ask for a feature and then they want they don't want it to be part of the open source, which is also always a challenge, or they want some exclusivity. Don't make it part of the open source for 6 months. I don't do that because it's just too complicated, and I don't entertain those at all. But that's a common thing that comes sometimes from commercial customers. So I just have a hard and fast rule there. I'm not sure if that's something you have to address, or it was a question I was going to ask you.
No, that's a good point. Trying to keep everything under control. When it comes to first, as Dave said, that's a strict policy. Like everything developed, even if it's paid by someone to be developed, goes automatically into the open source project. So it's nothing kept private to anyone. And secondly, everything has to go through the so-called consistency filter. So we don't want to have like a project which is just a pile of stuff, difficult to manage. Everything needs to be well integrated and follow some straight concepts into the project. And sometimes we're in the situation to I wouldn't call reject, but maybe second for reviewing different kind of contributions, because they are addressing a very specific case, very strange one, maybe particular, but the way it's addressed, it's so particular that you cannot have it like in the project. You need to put it in a way that it's also usable by other people. It's not something particular to you. So yeah, sometimes we need to keep an eye on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bogdan.
It was always one of the most shocking things as I got to understand how open source works in the comms industry, is just how little support that comes from the big corporate users. It's challenging and a relatively unique position compared to some of the enterprise open source projects. So it's a cultural thing as well. I just look at it as if somebody provides a good service, there's this thing called tipping. And given the money that's flowing through those large organizations, even if it was, 15% tip would be massive.
Yeah, but that's perfectly true. Like the small medium companies are more willing to get involved and to support. I mean, at the end of the day, they are using something. It's not like they are giving you for free. But they are more willing to get involved and to support rather than the big companies, which so from time to time we just discover, hey, these guys are using, but they haven't said anything. Okay, that's part of open source. Nobody, there is no obligation to do that. But sometimes you also get a bit of a pressure from people, for example, when they discover bugs or they want some problems to be resolved, and then they start being pushing, like, hey, can you help me and here and here? And say, okay, it's a best effort when it comes to helping community. I mean, you cannot do like an SLA for everybody. It's something for free. So, and again, they're a bit reluctant in getting involved into supporting. They just prefer to go under the, into the anonymous way, we say.
But that's why I think what you're doing with SIP Labs is really interesting and trying to create more value and more monetization paths. So I think it's a really good idea. Interested to see how that one works out. So